That's a nasty wound, traveler. Are you sure you wouldn't like to see a healer? No? Well, then a drink it is. I'll have Vara bring it over. Why don't you tell us all about your adventures in Phalon? I'm Lore Master Matt.
And I'm Phalon Jon.
And welcome back to the Sleeping Grush podcast, your source for information from every corner of the world of Phalon. And we are sitting at the beautiful Cardboard Corner Cafe in one of their private rooms. Soon to be enjoying their drinks and fabled hospitality. Cardboard Corner Cafe is the best gaming cafe in Kansas City, hands down. Huge game room, tons of games, great food, great drink, great staff. If you're in the Kansas City area, do not miss stopping by. It is one of those places you will regret not being at. Cardboard Corner Cafe, 2 locations, Lenexa Public Market and Overland Park.
I was just thinking how to say, I wanted to make a joke about the fact that something about tips, right? And when you come here, get a tip well. It might be that somebody that works here is related to me,
Maybe.
and I'm half Italian, so not tipping properly could get you in trouble. I couldn't make it sound great in the time allotted.
End up shorter or wetter or something. I don't know.
Something about kneecaps and
right.
bottoms of rivers and stuff. So, but I'm sitting here I couldn't quite pull it together in time. So let that be your warning, though. Don't come walking in here and mistreat your wait staff at behind the counter staff at Cardboard Corner, who are amazing.
They're fantastic.
I was also thinking the other thing that made me pause there is that we are doing this the wrong order. You said, "Hey, we're going to go enjoy a drink. We need to enjoy the drink and then do the podcast."
You know,
what are we doing?
It did occur to me that we were doing this dry, and that's not smart.
No,
right? Like we need to be lubed up a little bit for this, right?
Yeah, I'd enjoy it.
A little bit late,
Certainly, yeah. Matt, what is on your paint table?
Well, my Varcrawlon are still on my paint table. Slow but sure on those guys.
That's because they're beautiful.
They're beautiful.
Mine are done, but they aren't as good.
You know what though? I really love that orange tone on yours.
That's the Monument's color burnt orange, I think.
Is that? It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it really sets those models off. I
cheated on the blue.
I don't know that cheat is the right word, but
liquid talent.
Yes.
But we're talking about yours.
We're talking about mine.
Yeah.
So what I really want to talk about today is the DGS terrain redo. We are in the process of going through all of our terrain, which if you've been to any of our events, you've seen most of it, a lot of it. We bring it out in big tubs. We've had a lot of it for decades.
Hey.
Just saying, it's
also true,
right? It's good terrain.
It is,
and it's sturdy terrain. It's made well. It's made right. It looks good. So we've had it out. But one of the things that I'm working on behind the scenes this season is I'm taking the terrain and I'm kind of giving it a freshening. We're going to classify it by faction. So our tables will each have a faction theme now. And there'll be some of our existing terrain and some new terrain that kind of shows off the faction, but also makes it a little flashier on the table, right? So there'll be some larger centerpieces. So in the future, it probably starting at Gen Con, we're going to start seeing some new terrain that's themed, which I'm very
to next year's theme, which is a theme we're not talking about.
Well, next year's theme. That's Remind me after we're done here. I got to talk to you about that that workflow I sent over for that.
Yes,
which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, but that's what
it also occurs to me. We have I have 3 pieces at DGS headquarters that are too big for a tub that we very rarely deploy anymore. Ambush Hill,
yeah.
Right. We have the Star Temple.
Yes.
And another hill piece that's just, just significant in size. It's not got that cut in it like Ambush Hill does.
Right.
We didn't get those out like to a local event or something.
Maybe
they're hard to transport safely.
Maybe our next paint and play
Yeah,
We'll bring those down.
That's a good
get
idea.
those set up because
Speak to
that
them.
Star Temple would be awesome.
Yeah.
As a piece to draw some folks in.
Yeah.
All right, so for our Spike and Win section, John, how about you tell us about a game that you played lately,
Well, we had a paint and play here at Tabletop recently on a Saturday.
which I loved.
Yeah,
It was a lot
yeah.
of
We
fun.
have we set up to be able to both paint models and play games, and some of us do both. You know,
Right.
I like it when I rotate between. I play a game for a while, I go over and I paint for a while, and vice versa. So I got to play. I was focused more on playing because I paint a lot. You know, so
You do paint a lot.
I paint. Well, I don't paint I paint a lot, I guess, but I don't play as much as I want. Free blades, you know, it's play testing. It's working out new rules. It's working out new models. But just playing a game, just, you know, current models, point value, play a game comes too rarely. And I was lucky to get 2 games in that day with my 275 Dark Grove.
Nice.
One against the ever irascible Luke Felix. Yep. Put a little more energy into playing the game, a little less energy into talking about how you're going to beat me, Luke. You know? So, and I think, you know, one of those things that happens in a game, well, I'll talk about my fight. He was Coronin. I was, and he was Coronin with some, he was actually playtesting his side. My side wasn't. But he was playtesting his side. We have some new models coming out in August.
Talk about those in a minute.
We are going to talk about those in a minute, which includes some significant changes, improvements to the Coronin faction.
Yes.
Improvements. It's a great faction. Different ways of doing business, you know.
Yeah, a new way to deploy.
He was trying that out. And I had one of those early just bad luck things. You have the super spike and a guy dies that, you know, you really thought was going to live a little bit longer in your sort of calculations. I got a Cariad, a leader, 2 Ironbarks, a Carbazal, a Ventars as my allies, and then Thornrippers.
Nice.
Because they're awesome, right? I've talked about the model enough.
I was going to say, they're awesome, are they?
They are awesome. As things you punch across the table, you know? So,
as long as you wear steel toed shoes.
you know, I had one face down a Zalakar in the second game.
Nice.
It's like, me? I got to handle this? You know? Just get over there and don't die quickly. So one of my Ironbarks just evaporated. He rolled like a 30 million on a super spike and just blew me away. And the thing is, it takes you momentarily off your game. You kind of had to plan that turn, and it didn't include maybe you lost that combat, maybe it included you taking a life point loss, whatever. But it doesn't include. Oops, I'm gone all of a sudden as a whole. So one of the key things about, like we've talked about before, I teach this, or I taught it professionally. I'm retired now, but I taught it professionally. The plan has got to be able to be changed at a moment's notice because you are not in control of all the variables of the plan. Right? Never more so with the tiered dice system. So if you think real life can intrude, Since Ironbark died quickly, he's got models we'll talk about later. There's a Corbin Shadow in there. There's a Red Lancer in there. There's some of these new models that we're playing with for August. He's playtesting. But the bottom line is we're playing this game. I'm trying to remember what the scenario was. Might have been Bounty Hunt. Okay, pretty sure. One of the two was Bounty Hunt for sure. So I'm playing this Ironbark evaporates, and I had to adjust. And it certainly looked like the tide had turned. Luke was in the driver's seat, and my standard move, and it's such a standard move, people should know it's a standard move, Mike. So you play like you're down. Oh, woe is me. I'm backpedaling. I can't see my way to victory. You've got your foot on my neck. Don't throw me in the bribe, right? So until what happens? So, you have to adjust. You can't do what you were doing. That day is past. What you were doing is over because your Ironbark evaporated. But now you're kind of adjusting to that. I adjusted. And sure enough, somewhere in there, I did the same thing. I had a super spike go my way. One of his models died quicker than it should have on even dice. Right. Call them, And so, but the attitude was different. To him, he will not remember. And he blew a model of mine away and absolutely had the game in his back pocket about turn 2 or 3. Right? He will just talk about how he lost because that model got blown away.
Right.
And I'm picking on Luke because he's fun to pick on. But we're also friends. And he's a good guy. So it's a trend. The lesson learned from that game is you got to hang in there.
Right. Right.
That luck is gonna,
roll back and forth.
The key is to not put all your plan on one die roll because you don't know what that's going to come up. The plan is going to be spread across as many dice rolls as possible. So no one thing is, absolutely necessary. I can't tell you how many times I've said, if I just rolled a 4 there, well, right? So the second game was Ed McCarty.
Yeah.
Ed McCarty's Demons. And the hard demons, we call them. This thing get nicknames. Zalakar, 2 Carbazals, Punchy Punch, McCruel, woo, because you got to do that. When you move him,
you didn't do that.
Oh, you got to move your arms, yeah, like the tire guy, right? It's a good thing it's a podcast. So
we definitely need a gift of that.
Yeah. So my base position within a Zalakar is defeated something that's not going to typically die quickly. Hardened is good.
Right.
Stag Warrior is great because she restores.
Yeah.
Right. I put a Thorn Ripper in there because I don't care about them. If Zalakar punts it across the tabletop, I'm like, yeah, that's what you deserve. Your Pokemon looking at
did it on purpose.
But I believe it was twice that we talk about Ed's dice.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I'm not a person to talk about luck or bad luck either way. Right. If you have a plan for bad luck, your good luck looks ridiculous. That's my quotation. But Ed has complained. He's the Eeyore of dice, right? He comes down to tabletop. He talks about his games. Yeah, I played this? I have the worst luck ever.
Cursed dice,
right? Yeah,
I gave him to him.
It's true. It is true. He twice this Zalakar is ready to just flatten this Thorn Ripper into some kind of meaty vegetable paste.
Put him in the wood chipper.
And he rolls a 1 on his damage. I hit with the big fat hit. What wasn't a bone crusher hit, right?
Right.
But I hit with a good hit, and I go to put this thing away, and I roll a 1.
Yeah.
Right. And the Thorn Ripper, I'm still alive.
Look at me, boss. I'm not useless.
I kept asking him, you don't have parry, do you? And he goes, no. Boom, I take attack. So, we opened the game. We both had Aventarchs. I have Ventarch's ally. He had Aventarchs, part of his Demons of Caroline faction. My Ventarchs, I deployed on my right. He deploys his, on his left. So they're opposing each other. We both scout forward.
Right.
And he's going first. He puts his on delay. Now this is a die roll, right?
Right.
2 Ventarchs going to meet in midair. No one else is playing this turn. It's just these 2. Okay. It could go either way, right?
Right.
You could have a morale failure and chase him off and run him down. You could have both attacks kill him outright.
Sure.
He's just got that, 7 defense on nimble,
Right.
And I play these games. Well, once we transition to Gauntlet, this won't be true. But I will take risks in a game like this to just remind me not to do this in competition, right? So I charge him. He's got his on delay. If I move somewhere, he's got the freedom to put that model where he wants.
Right.
If I charge him, he's got to countercharge him. He can't leave it there standing, right? The delay goes away because he took his reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, the odds are we won't kill each other, right? But I've handled it either way, okay? And I'm rewarded because he rolled 2 3s and I rolled 2 9s.
Oh, God.
Neither of his hit, mine both hit, and I killed him. Boom, right there.
Wow.
Sitting there in some perch on my right, looking down at the battlefield going, all right, Thorn Ripper, go hold that Zalakar off, while the rest of us do our job. So, yeah, it was a great game, both of them. The takeaways from that are, you got to just absorb the hit. Something's going to go bad somewhere on the tabletop. You got to just, and please, if you're playing me, I'm going to act like you beat me already.
Right.
It's an act.
It is what it is.
I don't believe it.
That's right.
I'm adjusting my plan. I'm not going to keep the same plan I had when I sat down.
Right.
Right. But don't. Oh man, you got me, man. You totally. This game's kind of over. I'll play it out.
And it's so funny. You say that, and you say that you won't do it. He does.
Right.
Right. Like there has been 2 or 3 games. Yeah. That's right.
Our producer is signaling yes.
There's 3 or 4 games in the last couple of months where I've heard this lamentation coming out of Jon. There's wailing and there's gnashing of teeth, right? Just before the dice re-engage, and he's back on even footing. But it always follows some
super spike, I get run down. I feel a morale test to get run down, and a key model dies. I'm out of position. Oh, okay, I'll play it out. Some people I've been doing it too for 30 years.
You got to bring your sight game.
Probably not listen to this podcast. So anyway, 2 great games, 2 great opponents. Dark Grove, Owls. Owls helping to carry. I cast either Cage or the enchant spell, whichever version of enchant they got. The Cage spell, you put a cage around him.
Right.
Jacob Metziger still feels that pain. It's awesome. Kill the owl.
Right.
And Ed was smart. Ed came on the table, was immediately taking all the knowledge tests he could to try to recognize this disguise, break this disguise.
Yeah.
Also remember that, Iron Barks is still Sariad base, so they still have 4 fines.
Right.
Right. Go rolling it against somebody and get an extra wound in there on the way in. Oh, you got a missile weapon? Yeah, I get 2 of them. Yeah.
That's right. Sure. Here comes the other one.
Yeah. So, and don't ever throw your Ventox against mine. I'll roll 2 9s. That'll tell you. Anyway, moving on. So, what we want to do today is take a look at what's coming up for Gen Con. Gen Con events are live. They've been live for a couple of weeks. 29 events.
29, right. So the biggest amount of events we've ever attempted to pull off there. John's shaking his head.
Because it's crazy. That's why I'm shaking my head.
It's nuts.
It is nuts.
But it's going to be fun.
Right.
And they're already starting to fill up.
Yeah.
The events are already starting to fill up. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to talk about it on this podcast, on the Sleeping Grush podcast. So more people will kind of know.
Yeah, get those seats.
Not just a splash of what's going on, right, where everything's teased, in 30 words or whatever that holds your attention, but in a longer format where we can really talk about what's going on there, because there's a lot going on in Gen Con this year. So let's start off with our Kickstarter.
The Ancala Oracle.
The Ancala Oracle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That 1 year ago, Gen Con,
right,
was live and funded. And so how is that sitting and how does that play?
Let's talk about the good news first, right? And you're going to hear this. We haven't made this announcement anywhere else, so we're going to start here on the podcast, right?
Which is a great way to do it.
A great way to do it. We are, for the first time in 9 Kickstarters, we are not going to make our projected delivery date. There are a number of factors involved, including significant illnesses on part of the team, members of the team, but the big one is the tariff issue. And once again, first time, we go overseas because we kind of have to because nobody prints these things in the States,
right?
And we get scarfed up. Now, I said good, bad news. Our backers are already not paying shipping,
right?
In addition, we are going to thank our backers for their patience. It won't be that much longer.
Right.
We're going to miss the original projected date, but it's not going to be like a year later.
Right.
I get Kickstarters from the last time Matt Green went to a Gen Con. So, years I've had some. We're talking a couple of months longer.
Right.
Okay. It's worth the wait for a couple of reasons. One of them is, as a backer, you are going to get an exclusive artifact magic item card that we will never make anywhere else or ever again.
Right. It is exclusive.
Just for the backers that were part of the Ancala Oracle and stuck with us and were patient through the one time in 9 that we're not going to make it exactly on time. Mm-hmm. We're going to give you something nobody else can get.
That's right.
Right. We're not going to sell it separately. We're not going to burn them all. Whatever extra we might have left over after every one of you gets them.
They're going into the museum.
or in the secondary market. If you want to go sell yours on eBay, it's a free country. Do what you want, but we're not only going to make that many and no more.
Right.
We are talking about. In fact, we're also one of the updates come out. We're also going to involve the backers in talking about what that might be.
Yeah.
Because we got some design space to mess with. So they're going to get a thank you from us for their patience. Real good news is that this Oracle deck is out of this world beautiful.
It is stupidly beautiful.
It is.
Every time a new card comes out, I think that it can't be outdone. The last set, and then another set of 3 come out, and it just makes me want to cry because they're so beautiful.
Yeah. If you are into the lore at all of our world, of the world of Phelan, it's getting a significant upgrade with this product.
Huge.
Yeah. You'll be able to game master.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna write campaigns and other lore items about the Oracle once it's complete.
Right.
But the story is already written.
Yeah.
I read a draft of Kalara's biography. Just recently.
Nice. I need to do that.
The Ankala Oracle has a place in the world, like physically, it gets made in a certain year, where it's published beyond the circle of the Ankala.
Right.
Ankala lore keepers, use these Oracle decks to, look at different situations and divine things, but not outside their own.
But also to tell their story.
To tell their story. That's what it's for. But this woman, Kalara, decides to take it public to try to, among other things, head off the Brightsword War.
Right.
To tone that down. So there's an in-game person making this deck. It comes from a long story. It's been around for a long time. It's been used for a long time inside the Ankala society. It breaks out into the larger world, and that story gets told in a bigger format, and that is the basis for a whole bunch of other things we're going to do once we have it.
Right.
So it's not just going to be we do one time fire and forget. You got an Oracle, I'm not going to talk about it again. It will come with divinatory meanings for all the cards. It will come with the story. Well, all the backers will get the story of how it was developed, what story is it based on, why are the cards the way they are. It's not a copy of the Earth Tarot.
No, it is steeped in Phelan.
Absolutely tied to Phelan. So it's just if you just like great illustrations or great stories, either one or both, you'd want this.
Absolutely.
Even if you couldn't care less about Phelan.
Right.
You will. I said the other day when I read back over it, I said, you will once you read this and look at the pictures.
That's right.
That also comes with 2 other features, a magic item deck.
Yes.
Of 54 magic items, artifacts, and greater artifacts that will be playable in the game. A future rulebook, maybe not 25.2, but maybe 25.3, will include the ability to add magic items to your free band for the first time as part of free band assembly. And in addition to the 60 in the rulebook, this group will also be available with beautifully illustrated cards. And then the 3 Jesters card game.
Yes.
Which is the Trazerite poke in the eye to the Ankala, where they turn the Oracle into a
drinking game.
And all those, a lot of the backers took all 3.
Absolutely. I know.
We are working on all 3 feverishly right now, but we can't publish them the way we want to because of the tariff just kill us. So as soon as that tones down, which is getting better every day.
It is.
Right.
It is.
It's not going to be a very long time that we're adding to the
right. No, it's gotten tremendously better in the last month.
So those are the 3 components of it. I'm going to put out another update, show you 3 more cards, talk about the projected date being missed and what we think is true in terms of what might be available, and then involve the backers in the exclusive card they're all going to get.
That'll be fantastic. And I'm going to make a little note here because I have an idea for something that we should do when we do that.
Okay, cool.
But in the meantime, let's talk about the next segment of Gen Con, the next thing that we were doing there, and that's the game Terradin.
Right, our first board game, a deck builder, set in the world of Phelan. Been working on that pretty feverishly, I'll say.
Oh yeah, well
right?
Goodness, yeah. You had some stuff last night that came out.
Teradum is the free city that exists in between Corona and Falcar. And it's nominally set there. The patrons, you're playing a patron.
Right.
And you are manipulating cards, spending your money and manipulating cards to create a deck that you are playing the game out of to achieve victory by gathering the most victory points.
Right.
And once again, we had intended, obviously, Gen Con would be a great place to release this. We're not going to be able to do it because of the tariff situation. We do have multiple events at Gen Con where we're going to be playing proof copies of Teradum. We're going to have them there. We're going to have people out there on the floor teaching the game and having sessions where Brandon will be in the booth teaching the game, and we'll have people on the floor. Certain sessions you can sign up for.
Yeah.
And join that session and play the game.
Those are live now.
Yeah, live. Those sessions are live now. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. So, and it's pretty.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah. Every time we get another a component of it done, and really it's pulled together now. We're doing the graphic design layout bit. We're not doing it anymore.
I think something that bears saying, and it's just a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. We had all this. We had a date earlier in the spring that we had to have it completed by, to have it produced and to us by Gen Con.
Right.
And that happened to be in the middle of when the trade war started to explode.
Right.
And we knew immediately that we were going to have trouble
making the Gen Con deadline.
Right. So we slowed down a bit, right? Because if you have the time, you should take the time.
Right.
Because it always is going to be better if you're not pushing hard and sweating and rushing that deadline. So, last night we're looking at box art. And
the cover of the box and the patron boards.
Yeah, and good Lord, just gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a pretty game.
The art is phenomenal. Again, if you're not even don't know anything about Phalon, you're going to want this game.
Right?
You're
going to look at and I'm not a deck builder type, but I like playing it.
Right.
So if you can convince me to like a deck builder, he does it well. And we got to mention Brandon. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. We do.
This is we're developing the game. Our good friend Brandon Burns is a designer.
The designer on it,
and he's going to be physically present at Gen Con with a proof copy in the booth, giving demos of the game,
right,
and showing it off. We're very, very excited to work with him. He's got a great design.
Yeah,
he sold me on it the second he showed it to me. And like I said, if you can give me an elevator pitch, make me believe in a deck builder game in 5 minutes, you're doing pretty good.
Right.
So, and we'll expand on it.
Yes,
we've already got expansions planned.
Yes,
so it won't be just a one-off. It'll be our first foray, and not our last foray into the world of board games.
That's right.
That's for later. So, but I will point out though that with the three jesters and as part of the Oracle project and the board game Teradum, we will, by the time both those projects are for sale, be a game company that makes miniatures, board games, and card games.
I know,
Isn't that crazy?
What's so exciting about that is, and I know I've kind of teased you with a little bit with what's going on in my mind, not all of what's going on in my mind.
But pretty scary. Yeah.
The opportunity to mix some of those genres and using cards and miniature games and things like that.
Yep.
I mean,
we're going to do some of that.
Pretty, and it makes it even better. So there's all sorts of things that once this gets cleared, open up to us.
Yeah,
and that's
it's
very
just
exciting.
a step on the staircase of greatness. Yeah. So
we're pretty high on that greatness staircase.
We'll leave that to you, dear listener. I like Matt's enthusiasm.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
we're also releasing some new models for Free Blades, because that's what we do at these conventions.
That is what we do at these conventions, and we're not gonna get into details here because we're still releasing. We still don't have a lot of the new release stuff for August in the hands of our Patreon members.
Right.
Because our Patreon members, one of the benefits that they get is they get to see it first.
Yep. That is a privilege that they are affording.
That's absolutely right. And so we're not gonna spoil too much, but I want to mention a couple of things. I want to say Grular
Oh yeah, geez, yeah.
I will say that those of you who have been bearing with us on the Grular front are about to be richly rewarded. Um,
Have we ever done this much to one faction at one time?
no, never.
No. It's
And
basically a complete revamp. I mean,
it is a
you know,
revamp, yeah.
improvement,
Oh, by
in
far,
every
yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's going to blow your guys' mind.
yeah.
Like I said, those of you who have, like, because Grular have been around since the start, and some of the models were starting to show their age, and we're gonna,
Some of our models are starting to show their age in 2013.
you know, evil Santa.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, geez, yeah.
But like I said, your patience is about to be rewarded. And they're gorgeous. We're also going to get new Corona, and good Lord,
Well, let's do this. We're not going to tease the models,
we're not.
right? But we can say this. We've found that players seem to be a little gun shy about narratively. We see Corona plenty.
Yes,
Competition, we don't see them so much, and we're trying to figure out why because they're awesome.
they're amazing.
I mean, you can absolutely win games with Corona the way it's laid out now, but it might be a little daunting if you're a newer player because once you get into the competitive zone, you got to have two castles.
Right.
The way the rules are written in.
Right.
And so, and that is not their sole identity either. It was a fun thing to release them with, but that is not the teammate aspect, the egalitarian aspect of Corona is important.
Yes.
But the idea that they always must have two casters, it has to be these two, it's limiting.
It is limiting.
Right? When other factions have a lot more leeway in the way they're built. And it's not their sole identity.
Right.
And so, with the advent of these new models for August, you will no longer be required to take two casters in your Cronin free band. And there may or may not be other leader options in the mix with that release.
That's awesome. That's a great way to say it.
Okay.
Cool. Perfect.
Yep.
And then last but definitely not least, Paradol's going to get some love.
Yes.
And in a big way. One that you guys have been asking for a while.
Well, we're right. One for, because that other model's later, right? Mm-hmm. You're talking about the one that's been around for a while. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's going to be an amazing release. It's going to be a little bit larger than normal.
And with conversion possibilities, that model can be used 3 different ways.
Huge conversion possibilities there. Yeah. So you guys that are model collectors or just looking to expand your force, rejoice. For your time is at hand.
All right, so we have some games in addition to Tearden we're going to put on.
We always have games. That's one of the backbones of our presence at cons, and this is no different. We're going to have encounters and demos, just pretty much in the same vein that we did at Adepticon. So if you were at Adepticon, we tried a new schedule this time around where we had a few less demos and we had more encounters because we found that people were showing up to encounters to learn because they wanted that cooperative aspect.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean we're doing
a minimum model count for them to learn with.
Right. You're learning on 2 figures.
I'm working with my fellow players. I'm also only controlling a couple models at a time.
Yeah.
And they have a blast.
Oh, yeah. The encounters are huge.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue that tradition, that new tradition, where we have fewer demos, but still have plenty of demos. And we have encounters. And so we're going to bring a couple of the games that we had at Adepticon. We're going to bring Sinking Sands, and we're going to bring Final Days of the Legion, or Last Days of the Legion. But then we're also going to be joined by a new game coming out of Roger Rexroad's mind called Webs of Ruinous Intent. And I think you guys are going to absolutely love that game. That's going to be some fun stuff. Yeah. So by all means, jump into the Gen Con webpage, start signing up for these events.
Yeah,
because one of the things that we found is at Gen Con, we sell a few less tickets pre-game, but we fill to overflowing as people pass on the floor and see the game set up.
You want to be sure to get a seat. You want to go in now and register in advance.
Absolutely, get your seat going. Yeah. All right, so we also have
We have a tournament. The tournament's on Sunday, which is unusual, not our typical schedule for other conventions. We've gone to Sunday. Gen Con's a smaller tournament. It's not a miniatures convention like
Right.
Adepticon
Right.
or ReaperCon. And so it's the competitive aspect is least emphasized. We also, our volunteers have a fairly high number of competitive players.
They do.
Right.
They do.
And so that allows them to jump in and play also. And so, and I know the last time I looked, the tournament was not full.
Right.
You know,
Right.
So there's still seats there to come in and play if they're competitive. You got all your options. You got the board game. You give that a try. We'll have the Oracle deck there to show off and talk about probably the other two decks, to prototype and show.
Yeah.
We think we're going to do the Oracle one way or the other.
Right.
We'll probably have prototypes of the others to show off. Maybe we'll get a late night game of Three Jesters in.
I would love that.
That'd be cool.
Mhm.
And Encounters, these beautiful Encounters games with great stories on incredible terrain,
Mhm.
very eye-catching terrain. Demos, if you need a demo,
Yeah.
jump into a demo.
Yeah. I mean, if you're probably not listening to this and need a demo,
Right.
but maybe you have
Your friends
some
do.
friends
Yes.
that need demos.
Maybe you have friends.
And well, let's not get too far. But get them signed up.
Yep.
The demos do fill up pretty well. We find that it's the Encounters games that start to fill up once people see them on the tables.
Right.
Right, because of the beautiful
The
terrain.
demos are more like the full advance, yeah.
Mhm. So
Okay.
yeah, Gen Con's going to be fantastic. It's
All the things.
yeah, all the things. And
Major
it's,
new release, Grular gets a bunch of models. And get a chance to look at the board game, give it a play, get a chance to look at the Oracle, play in a tournament, play Encounters games, learn the game, buy a bunch of new models, all the things.
it's going to be a great con. All right, so that's about all for our main segment. But we have our job board today, and John, what have we got for our job board?
Oh, so a good friend of ours,
Great
who shall
friend of
remain nameless, asked me offline. There's an article that I've pinned to the top of the Free Blades Tactics channel on Discord. The article is a result of giving a teaching game, which I do all the time, at Gen Con a year or 2 years ago.
2 years ago, I think.
2 years ago. And there was a line in there that this friend highlighted and said, I want to hear more about this. And the line essentially says that victory is better viewed back to front. I don't remember the exact words, but that's the idea.
Right.
And the caveat is I did teach the tactics for a living. It is easier to plan, more efficient to plan, looking at how you expect to look when you win the battle, and then backwards plan to your start point. Okay. It came up because the person I was showing the game, we were talking about deployment. And I said, okay, let's talk about Kazark, free band.
Yeah.
I said, okay, the Explorer. Where are you going to put him? I don't know. I said, where's he going to be when you win? And that shocked him, I guess. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, when I'm picturing a battle, I'm playing domination, one of the free blade scenarios. How does it look when I got my 9th point? Old school, you do victory points now, but how does it look when I get those points, to produce victory? Where am I? Do I have to have one of the deep ones?
Right.
If I am, how am I going to get it and not have it taken away from me by the other player? That sort of thing. And then that tells me, the pace of the battle back to where I set my models up.
Right.
And that was his fundamental question, is about when you sit down and look at deployment. Now, for most free bands, Kazark are kind of challenged, Harradell kind of challenged in some ways because of Speed 5, but for most free bands, those are flyers, those are cavalry models especially, but even those 7 movers, you don't have to be directly across from the spot that you intend to go when you deploy.
Right.
Right. The table is only so big and you're moving 14 inches at a time. You can fix that.
Yeah.
You can even try to deceive someone if you want. I don't tend to play that game because I'm too busy wanting to impose my will on the player. I set my stuff up. I'm going to do exactly what this looks like, and you need to do something about it. So
Okay.
I'm really going to send my guy off to the right, but I'm going to start over here. Go ahead. Do your thing. Sun Tzu, So So anyway, I did tell him, he did point out, hey, I know you're really busy, but, well, no, you don't. Otherwise you wouldn't be DMing me. I know you're really busy, but, could you expound on this? I said, yeah, when I get a chance, I will write to that and throw another article in the tactics section. But the bottom line is picturing, and this is a highly competitive who's won some,
very
events,
competitive, yes.
right? Particularly talking about competition in the free blade setting. That might not be everybody's thing.
Right.
But talking about, I do think there's some cases watching other people play, they set their stuff up. They're just setting it up.
Yeah.
And that might be all they want to do. And that is cool. But if you're a person who wants to have it like be a component of what you're trying to accomplish, that's what that article will be for. There's too much to it to just talk about now, especially at the end of a podcast.
Right. That we've got
I will answer that question. The idea being that you picture what it looks like. How many models do you think you're going to lose? Why'd you lose them? Or what did you sacrifice them for? Because the idea you're going to go in and play against a good player, never lose a model, that's just crazy.
Right.
It's losing them the right way, the right time is what you want to do. And better if you make them think they're winning because they killed it. Which circles back to
the deception,
the game of Luke. Anyway, that article will come.
Awesome. All right. So before we sign off, we'd like to thank Matthew Budney, a World of Phalon Patreon subscriber that supports DGS Games and its community at the World Builder level. If you want more information about the Patreon, please visit www.patreon.com/DGS Games
to see what rewards being a Patreon subscriber at that level gives you, and what kinds of things that you can be involved in to help the Free Blades community. Matt is our Raven Blade world builder.
He is, Raven Blade world builder.
And it's a big deal. And
he
does a lot for the community. So thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Matt. All right, folks. Until next time, we'll see you around the table.
Sil the Kava.